Gotta, of course, add the camera shot. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 50 of the Galactic Window Space Podcast. My name is Nick, and sometimes when I go to historic places, I am known as the Orbital Alliance.
And I am still just Tan, also known as Chasing the Milk.
That's right. And you guys, we're back for another episode, just like we are every single week. We host a podcast about space and astronomy. So we're glad you're all here because it's likely that you guys want to know more about that too. So tonight we're not going to disappoint, and we're going to try to save every second that we can so you guys get every ounce of impact possible during this stream. It's going to be a really good one, and we're just so thrilled to have this opportunity to make episode 50 the best episode yet.
What a way to spend our 50th episode. Where are we? What is it? What is happening?
Gosh, so yeah, we do have a little bit of video to show you guys in a second, but we are in Yerkes Observatory, which we'll intro here in a second. But Tan, want to talk about a little bit about what we're doing while we're here, the support that we're going to ask people to help us with.
Guys, we're doing a fundraiser. Our goal tonight is going to be $500, and the Galactic Window, we're going to start it off. We sent our $50 donation, so we're going to start it off. We're kindly asking you guys throughout the show to support the cause here. We have links in our description, and yeah, there's going to be so much to unpack, and we don't want to jump in right away, but we could use any bit of support. So whether it's a penny, a dollar, or whatever you guys want, any bit is appreciated.
Yeah, because we are in a historic facility tonight, and there is so much that goes into keeping places like this alive for astronomy in the world. And we'll get into a little bit of the history of it, but the impact that places like this have is critical on the advancement of the human race. So we're inviting you guys into that, and like Tan said, we're leading the way. We already put a donation in, and the link is in the description of the video if you guys are looking for that. So be sure to check that out, and if you are feeling that spirit of, hey, I want to support astronomy in the world, you can go right to that, and any amount will make an impact. But we'll get a little bit more into details in just a second. So what do you say, Tan? Want to just like get right into the mess?
Let's just go in.
All
yeah,
right.
Let's do it.
We're going to roll a video for you guys.
Welcome to Yerkes Observatory, a historic icon in astronomy. Built in 1895 and located in Wisconsin, it's home to the world's largest refracting telescope and has played a key role in shaping modern astrophysics in America.
Leading its science and education efforts today is Dr. Amanda Bauer, an astrophysicist and passionate communicator, helping bring new life to Yerkes through innovative public programs and cutting-edge research. Please welcome Dr. Bauer to the show. All right, we're on the show. We're back, and we have Dr. Bauer with us. Dr. Amanda Bauer, Deputy Director of Yerkes Observatory. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is awesome.
Thank you for coming and hanging out in one of my favorite places. Y'all are looking pretty sharp tonight,
Thank
so
you.
You too.
I feel pretty honored.
We all dressed to the nines. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We owe it to astronomy, right? We got to show up in our best. We're excited to have you here. We love to have guests on the show because Tan and I are just a couple of, content creators from the suburbs of our respective cities. But we need the expertise. We need people like you to take things up to new heights and make us look bad. That's the
That's the goal.
Yeah, exactly. So we are very excited to have a conversation tonight and learn a little bit more about yourself and your career, but also Yerkes Observatory and what kind of magic happens here.
Love to share the stories of Yerkes.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. So chat, we want to let you guys know, please put your questions in here. We'll do our best to see as many of them as we can. We can't guarantee that we'll get to everybody because there's just too many of you here, which is pretty crazy. We see 66 people live in the chat with us. So thank you all for being here. Can't thank you enough.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah, so let's learn about you a little bit. Like, you're an astronomer.
I am.
That's awesome. How did that even come to be? What's the beginning point in your life that set you on that trajectory?
I think walking to my friend's house, I grew up in the Midwest, and walking to her house and coming home for dinner, it would be dark, and I would look up at the stars and kind of make up my own constellations. And so I would always kind of wait and see where the constellations were, but then started to notice patterns, like the same constellations aren't up all the time, and sometimes they're over here in the sky, and sometimes over there. It just depends on what time it is. So I started to do that kind of observing of the universe. But honestly, growing up, I never met a scientist. I didn't know astronomy was a thing that you could do for real. So when I went to college, I studied French, because I went to a university, my hometown university, the University of Cincinnati. They didn't have an astronomy department. I honestly didn't know astronomy was physics back then. So I wanted to travel. That was my big goal. So I was studying French, and after a couple classes, I just realized it wasn't necessarily a good fit. I really liked kind of figuring out how things worked. And so I went to the one astronomy professor and asked if I could have a job for the summer. And he said yes. And I was like, well, I guess I'm switching my major to physics.
Oh, wow.
Score, yeah. What an opportunity.
Yeah, it just kind of went on from there. So all the little lab projects or anything that I got to do in my classes, I would study astronomy or really try to focus on astronomy. And they built up so that they had some astronomy professors by the time that I left. And I just loved it. I didn't get enough of it, so I applied for grad school and managed to get to continue on with the adventures around the world using telescopes.
Oh my goodness. What sort of courage did it take to ask that initial question, to get involved with something that you were like completely unaware of, but taking a risk? Like, what was that like for you to embrace that opportunity?
Yeah, I think at many different stages in my career and life, opportunities have popped up, and they're not obviously opportunities at the time when they happen, but I am a pretty curious person and am not necessarily shy. So I'll go and chat with people and just kind of ask questions and see what's going on. And that has led to a lot of opportunities. So another really fun example I like to share in undergrad as well, there was this woman, she was a particle physicist. She came to give a lecture, and they set up an hour-long session for undergraduates to go and speak with her. So I did, and I was the only one who showed up to this whole session. And we had just learned about gravitational waves in my class, and like my mind was blown by the existence of gravitational waves and like detecting it. I was running a mile a minute, and so I was like, can we just talk about gravitational waves? Like, particle physics is great, but I want to hear about this. And so we just talked for about a half an hour, like getting all my questions answered and just kind of being mesmerized. And then other students showed up. And so I was like, okay, I'm out. See you later. Thanks. And she ended up taking the initiative to email me later that week and said, hey, would you like to come and work as an intern at Fermilab this summer? And as great as that opportunity was, I didn't want to be a particle physicist. Like, Fermilab's a particle accelerator. So I thought about it for a while and emailed her back, and I said, thank you so much for the offer, but I really want to study astrophysics, not particle physics. And she immediately responded and said, oh, no. I am not asking you to work with me. I'm actually going to go to the head of the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, whose offices are at Fermilab, and see if this big astronomy project, wants an undergraduate for the summer. And so I was like, so like just going and talking to her and having a conversation and asking all the questions that I was fascinated by managed to land me this internship in astronomy that like solidified the idea that yes, I wanted to continue and just keep studying space.
Wow. That's incredible. Dr. Bauer, I kind of want to rewind just a little bit because we kind of share a similar story of how we got started. I spent a lot of time just looking at the stars, and however people enter the world of astronomy is always so interesting to me. What actually led you to make that step to just go outside and look up? Like, was there a calling, or why'd you do it?
There's always that sort of existential like wonder. There always was for me. I think just the beauty of the sky, being able to see those stars and noticing patterns. I've always been one to kind of notice patterns in things. In fact, I can find four-leaf clovers anywhere I go.
No way.
I can find like piles of four-leaf clovers. It's crazy. I used to find
I've
a
never
four-leaf
found one.
clover for every single girl on my soccer team when we would play. So that's like 18 four-leaf clovers while we were warming up. Like I just have a thing with patterns. And so seeing the patterns in the stars, I think just fascinated me. Like, why is a four-leaf clover and not a three-leaf clover? Like, something is different here. And I can find five-leaf clovers, and there's something even more different there, but there are fewer of them, and six-leaf and on. And so I think attaching that to space and the patterns of the stars and why some of them look a little blue and some of them are white and some of them are yellow, like, these are the kinds of things that I was thinking about and observing as a kid. And then just kind of wanting to know more. So I would get a little book from the library. I remember the moment that I asked my mom, like, okay, astrology or astronomy? Which one is the science?
Yeah.
Then I was like, astronomy, astronomy, astronomy. That's the one I like.
Yeah, just like sear it in your mind, right?
Exactly. So it just kind of kept going from there. It was always in the back of my mind as like an interesting, fascinating thing. And then actually when I was in high school, there were 2 huge comets that came, so back to back. And you could see them right at the end of my street. And so those, I think that was really the thing that just blew my mind. Like, I know these things are so far away. They're just floating there, but they're moving so fast. And I couldn't, like, it just was so fun. I just felt so peaceful kind of watching them and trying to drag my family out and say, look at this thing. And they're like, yeah, it's cold.
Cool.
Go on inside.
What comets were they?
Oh, which ones were those? It was Hayukatake and maybe Hale-Bopp.
Hale-Bopp
I think
in
those were 2.
97.
Yeah, 96 and 97.
Yep.
Nice.
And so that was like right when I was getting ready to graduate, and I was looking at schools around thinking, okay, I want to study astronomy. And then my parents dropped the old, you're going to the University of Cincinnati. You have no choice. And so I was like, okay, let's see if they have astronomy. Nope. So yeah, it was always kind of there, always fascinating. I always liked to, I was in the math club in high school. I enjoyed science, like I enjoyed figuring out how things worked. So I'm really glad that it just stayed there in the back of my mind as an option, and that I had the time to make the choice. It wasn't like, when I'm 13, this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I sort of, I was going to be a professional piano player for a while. I was going to be a soccer player till I busted my ACL.
Oh, gosh.
Then I was going to teach English around the world in French-speaking countries. And all of those things were like, I threw my whole heart into it. But in the end, it kept coming back to this idea of science, of astronomy, and like, let's give it a go.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's this infinite expanse, totally pun intended, in the astronomical world. There's so many different like subsections that you can pursue, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of have a specialty that you tend to focus towards galaxies. Am I correct? Is that sort of your area of focus?
Yeah.
What drew you to galaxies?
So it's interesting when you enter graduate school, it's like the whole universe is open, and it is as important in graduate school to find an advisor and a team that you gel with than the particular topic. So if you go in and you're like fascinated about black holes and you really want to study black holes no matter what, like, okay, go ahead and study black holes. But for me, it was sort of a testing out different teams and seeing what kind of science I found interesting and people that I worked well with. And so the folks that I ended up working with were observers. I knew I wanted to use telescopes. They were studying galaxies and trying to figure out how they changed over time based on how big they were, how many stars they had, how many new stars were forming. And so I really started to get into that, even though that's not what I studied when I was doing my internship at Fermilab. So yeah, I think I just started the complexity of the galaxies. There's dark matter, there's gas in between all the stars, there's hundreds of billions of stars, there's a supermassive black hole. They're beautiful to look at. And so that kind of ignited curiosity and no end of questions in my mind. So I just kind of kept driving that. And I'll say, so this big telescope we're sitting under here at Yerkes, my 9-year-old daughter can use it, and she comes and observes with me every now and then. And when you like open up the telescope, you usually have to look at a star or two and kind of focus everything and make sure everything's going right. And so my daughter will come in here, and it gets late. She can't always stay up so late. And so she'll be like looking through it. Oh, Mom, another boring star. I'm out of here. I'm going to sleep. And so that kind of what reminds me of, like, stars are fascinating, and they have a lot to teach us about the universe, but galaxies are just fundamentally so beautiful.
Yeah, right,
like
right.
any kind of light that you look at them at, I think that always kept me going towards researching those.
Oh, what an amazing story. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I love that you chose galaxies. Just a really quick story. The first time I'd seen one was by accident. I was just getting into Milky Way photography, and I was just shooting a random portion of the sky just to make sure my stars are in focus. And then I seen this little smudge, and I thought, like, hey, what is that on my lens? Is that a booger or something? Like, what is that? And I looked at it closer, and I zoomed in, and like, I wasn't sure. It was the Andromeda Galaxy, but I had never seen it before. And I asked my friend, like, what is this? And we were trying to figure it out. So we pulled out our app, and we looked up, and sure enough, it was the Andromeda Galaxy. And I just remember just mind blown. Me, a simple human being, with the simplest of technology, being able to see something so far away, it was such an emotional experience. So I just love that you're spending your life's work on studying that. It's remarkable.
Thanks. It's been a joy. It's hard work. I mean, grad school is no is no joke.
Yeah,
you have to
right.
be pretty into it and committed and willing to work hard. But it's definitely been a wild ride in an unpredictable career that has brought me around the world and back here. So I've really enjoyed it. So thank you. I'm glad you guys have gotten into it to come and visit now.
Right. Well, the landscape itself of astronomy has probably changed significantly since you began your education to now. Like, what do you perceive of that change? Is it huge? Is it a little bit? Like, how did that impact you? Like, seeing how things, like the way we observe things.
Yeah, when you say that, there's a couple of things that come to mind. I mean, we've got a lot more space telescopes now, so that's fun. Don't have to deal with the atmosphere and Earth, and we can get up there. Also, data science has just shot up. So when I was studying, my PhD sample had about 250 galaxies, and I had individual data for each of those galaxies and spectroscopy and imaging, and that felt like a huge sample at the time. Now you have these surveys coming out, like the VRC Rubin is going to start. That's where I worked before I came here to Yerkes. It's going to start later this year, and it will have millions and millions and millions of galaxies that it observes. I mean, the statistics have just shot.
Yeah.
Crazy. So you can't use the same types of techniques of me like downloading all my data on my little laptop computer and, and trying to analyze it. Like, you really need more sophisticated tools, knowledge, teams who can help analyze the data, because I can no longer be I can't excel in all the skills that I need to operate telescopes, to build instruments, to analyze the data, to write the papers, to train the students. Like, I just can't do all of that as a person. So I think astronomy has shifted to working in teams a lot more, which I think is a good thing. Like, I think that benefits everybody when you have folks with different kinds of knowledge and different kinds of expertise and perspectives coming together to answer the big questions.
We talked about on the show the idea of synergy, how you can have one person pull a certain amount of weight, but when you add two, it's not just 2 times, it's like 4 times the weight. You can apply that to any sort of career path or study or effort in the world, and it seems like this is certainly an excellent example of when you get whole teams of people, it takes it just a whole new level, right?
Yeah, and it absolutely can. I would say not every partnership or team works like that, as we've all seen in our personal lives.
Right. The human factor.
The human factor. And when you kind of bring the inertia of sort of the historic way that academia has operated, and you get that kind of mentality of the sole genius who stands on the shoulders of giants and all those things. I mean, there's a challenge too in shifting to the larger team and larger collaboration mentality from very small, kind of the genius idea. And so, from the human perspective, that's also a challenge for the whole culture of astronomy to adjust to as well.
Sure. Well, really quick, I want to take a break and address everybody here in the chat. First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who's tuning in live on YouTube. This is a huge night. We're glad you're celebrating our 50th episode with us. Currently, I'm seeing 68 people in the chat. It's incredible. If you know somebody who might be interested in learning about an amazing facility and an amazing person who's doing work in this facility, please send the link to them, share it with them, and help them come in the chat and tap into that collective experience. It's going to be a fun night. We got a lot more to come. So thank you all for being here. Also want to prioritize the idea again that we have a donation link in the chat to support Yerkes Observatory where we are right now. I also want to show you guys again this live shot of the room that we're in, this huge wide shot. This is this giant telescope. We'll get to that in just a second. It's huge. But this is what you guys are going to be supporting. And I want to highlight again our $500 goal for the night. It appears that we have
Oh my God!
$260 already, so we're 50% of the
there.
way.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Seriously, thank you
you
everybody.
guys so much. I also saw a bunch of supers come in. You guys are extremely generous. Please, whatever you're gonna send us, send it to Yerkes every little bit. So thank you tremendously. But please, we want you guys to use the link and show Yerkes some love.
We love you guys very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're doing our best to keep up with the chat. but we apologize if we're not keeping up with it. It's definitely hard. The lights and all that, it gets to you. But we're having fun, and we hope you guys are too. Please continue the conversation and have fun learning about space, because there's going to be a lot more of that very shortly. Cool. So let's shift gears. Let's talk about the observatory.
Okay.
Like the past, the present, and the future of this amazing place. There's so much history. Where do we even begin?
It's a good question. We could fill up another 3 hours of just the history of Yerkes. So it was founded in 1897 by George Ellery Hale, and he was the one who went on, when he built this place, this was the biggest telescope in the world behind me, and it had that title for about 11 years. And then the next one that took over, George Ellery Hale built, and then the next one and the next one. So he built the 4 biggest telescopes in the world and kind of dominated his influence in astronomy for about 60 years. But this was the first one. He built it when he was only like in his early 20s. He became the director of Yerkes. It was right when the University of Chicago was founded, and Hale and the president of the university said, we need an international observatory. We need to build the biggest telescope in the world, because astronomy was such a huge science at the time. And so they went to this guy named Charles Yerkes, who is not an astronomer. Turns out he's kind of a swindler, bit of a shady character in Chicago.
Nice.
Never heard of any of those before. But they convinced him that he could rebuild his reputation if he donated money to found this world-class observatory. And he said, okay, but only if it's within 100 miles of Chicago. Because even at that time, we knew we wanted to go to mountaintops. We didn't really want to build it around major cities. So that's why they picked this little town, Williams Bay in Wisconsin, a beautiful spot right on a lake. And so this is still the world's largest refracting telescope. The people who have passed through here are incredible. Edwin Hubble, who you might know, the Hubble Space Telescope.
Oh, yeah.
He did his PhD here after he, got pretty well known as a basketball star in Chicago.
Yeah.
Let's see, Carl Sagan did his PhD here. Chandrasekhar, who maybe isn't one that everybody knows, but he came here in 1930 and spent his whole career here. He got a Nobel Prize for some of the work he did on stellar structure, and really contributed quintessential materials. Like every 10 years or so, he would get bored with what he was studying, and he'd go on and write the seminal textbook on the next area that he found interesting.
And the Chandra X-ray Observatory in space is named after him, right?
That's named after him as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the Hubble Space Telescope, the Chandra Space Telescope. The next major observatory that is going to be launched is named the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. She did her PhD work here at Yerkes in the 50s.
Oh, it just keeps getting better and better. My gosh.
And then now you guys have Tan and Nick.
Yeah,
here.
right.
Yeah.
Who knows what the future holds, especially when you're dressed like that. It's awesome.
We're gonna put a phone call into NASA.
Yeah.
And, tell them, hey, name the next one after us.
Nick, I don't know. What is it like? What did you feel when you first walked into this room and you just looked up?
The scale is overwhelming. Again, as you guys can see here in the shot, we are very small. There's a human scale visible for you guys. And you probably can hear the expanse of the room in our microphones. I don't think it does it justice because these mics do cancel out some of that effect, but it is hard to actually keep up with the sound in the room as we're speaking because the reverberation is constant.
Yeah.
I don't want to clap because it will just echo for the next 10 minutes, but it's impressive. When you walk in here, it's not just a visual experience, you smell it. You smell the age and the history of it.
Yeah.
You feel like you're in some movie, maybe. There's a little bit of an element of what movie am I in right now?
It's a time trip for me. I feel like I am just experiencing the same exact moment, some of those giants that you were talking about, just sitting right here in this room, but just many years later. It's like haunting in a really beautiful way. It's hard to explain. You guys just have to come see it. There's just so much that we can't show on camera, but even the wheels that the observatory rotates on, you can just see it, man. It's incredible.
It's a kind of a cool steampunk vibe, right? There's gears.
There's metal. You're smelling the grease. You're smelling the dust. You're smelling all of that history. That's one thing that it kind of ties into actually using these telescopes too. There's such a tangible feeling to it that you don't get very often because so many things are hooked up to computers these days. So you troubleshoot the software more often than the hardware now. And so when you walk into here, like when I came, this place had been closed for a little while, and there was some tarp, some plastic covering the telescope. The first time you visited, you saw that. And so I was the only astronomer on the staff. We'll talk a little bit about that transition of ownership. And so my first job was to see if the telescope still worked. And
That's important.
Trying to move it, trying to figure out where the grease goes, where the oil goes, I kind of know how refracting telescopes operate, so I could use that experience, but it just, it was like the scale of it. It's just so huge. And now when things are operating smoothly, you familiar with the sounds and you diagnose problems, you troubleshoot because something sounds different. And you're like, oh, that's new. I don't know what that squeak or thump or pound or squeal is. And then we're like, okay, stop what we're doing.
It's a five senses experience.
It really
right?
is. Yeah.
Goodness. Yeah. So as the observatory aged throughout the 20th century, it had lots of developments, and I'm sure it created a lot of impact. What sort of breakthroughs happened here during that time?
I mean, right from the beginning, we call this place the birthplace of modern astronomy, and that's because of the techniques that were used here. When they founded this telescope, it was meant to be a visual telescope you look through with your eye. And you can imagine astronomy for the entire history was people memorizing things with their eyes and trying to study it and recreate it and share that. Or maybe they would sketch it. And so when they got here, they were just at the beginning of astrophotography, of daguerreotypes, when they were trying to capture images on those glass plates.
Right.
And so when they saw what this telescope was doing, they realized we need to really elevate and move forward that types of technology to capture astrophotography. And so the entire process of astrophotography was essentially founded here with engineers who were at Kodak. Eastman Kodak was nearby. And so the engineers from here and there would go back and forth and refine the kind of techniques for the chemicals that they would put on to have higher sensitivity in order to capture images. And so you can imagine, for the first time, every night, every day they're looking at the sun, every night they're looking at all kinds of objects. For the first time, they can take their data away, of course, after they spend all day developing things in the darkroom,
Right.
and share it and publish it and look at it and examine and measure distances and measure brightnesses. So much of the work that was coming out originally was just, here are all these stars and here's how bright they are and here's where they are. So accuracy and positioning just kind of blew everything away. So Hale saw that coming and founded currently what's one of the biggest journals of astronomy, which is the Astrophysical Journal. So that was founded here in 1897. And then they hosted the very first meeting of the American Astronomical Society, which is now one of the biggest meetings in the world of professional astronomers every year. So those were like very early on. In addition to that, they had this astronomer, E.E. Barnard, who was one of the most amazing astrophotographers ever, especially with that technique. And he was imaging the kind of dark regions around the Milky Way. And they weren't really sure why it was dark at the time. They didn't know if it was because there was nothing there. There was a lack of stars, or was it something blocking the stars from behind, which ended up being what he discovered. So he looked at the dark nebula and found these dark regions with really dense dust and material, and those are, what we've learned, are the kind of nurseries where new stars form across the Milky Way galaxy. I could go on.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear more?
Oh, we always want to hear more. No, yeah.
Please.
I do have one question that's biting at me.
Okay, go for it.
The metal plates, or the glass plates.
Glass plates,
Glass plates
yeah.
that images were resolved on. Obviously, it's very different than the digital imagery that we can capture today. Like backyard astrophotographers like us. Where do those go? What happens to glass plates historically? Do they deteriorate over time? Do they get stored somewhere? Are there ways that we can preserve them? Like, can you teach us about that? Because I have no clue.
Yeah. So that's the data. That's the historical data. They do last. Some of the early plates are having some of the chemicals peel off, so we're doing our best to preserve those. But we are actually housing 180,000 glass plate images that date back from about 1900 all the way to the 1970s and into the 80s when CCDs sort of came online.
Yeah, right.
So they live on the other end of the building. There's this, what we call the plate vault. And so you try to store them at constant humidity, constant temperature. When you raise and lower the temperature and humidity, that's what does the most damage to that chemical emulsion. So one of the big things that we're trying to do now is put together the process of digitizing that entire collection, which is not an easy feat.
Right.
So we have some summer students who come in to do research every year. They're going to show up in less than a month. We're very excited to have them here. And so some of the projects they're working on are picking out glass plates, well, looking through our collection to see what we have, pulling out glass plates and digitizing them so that we can turn them into digital data and analyze them with regular code that we run. And then looking at what those objects looked at different periods over the last 100 years, and then taking new observations with our modern telescopes, because we have not just this big old one, we got a couple other more modern telescopes here. So they learn how to use those telescopes, and then they map what the brightness was of these objects over time.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
you can imagine we have the history, ironically, of the universe here that you can't capture. Like those photons came, they landed, those are the only time we're ever going to capture those photons. And we've got them captured on that glass.
Wow. This is kind of the first time I'm hearing about the plates. Can you kind of give me an idea of like what that looks like going from taking a photo and then transferring the data onto these glass plates? And then also, how are, like I know in modern day astrophotography, there's telescopes that can track and stuff like with motors. How are we tracking the skies back then? Or
You just tapped on like two of my favorite parts of history here.
Let's go. Let's do
Okay,
it.
so
Sweet.
I'm going to start with your second question, which is how do they track? So when I first walked in here for the very first time, it was the executive director, Dennis, who you met last time you were here.
Right.
And they had one other staff member, and I walked in and just, my mind is blown seeing this thing every time. It never gets boring. And my first question was, do you have the clock drive? And they were like, well, the what now? And so inside of this pier, there's this big blue pier that holds up the telescope. Inside of that pier, there is a mechanism that moves the telescope. And so the telescope rotates on two different axes, one that points up and down and one that points kind of left and right. And so it is perfectly set at an angle. You can see the telescope piers at a certain angle to be calibrated for where we are on the surface of the Earth, like how far up we are above the equator. And so that means that when the telescope moves in right ascension, it follows the exact path that the stars follow across the sky. And so if you kind of put that on a clock and you move it, then it keeps the telescope on track. And so inside of that pier, there's this mechanism. It's this beautiful, it's like this huge metal thing, and it has this thing that spins that's called a governor, and that lowers a weight down in the pier. And it's calibrated perfectly so that as that weight lowers, it moves the telescope to counteract the motion of the Earth and follow the stars in the sky.
That is insane.
Okay,
What?
I'm sensing the next plot of National Treasure 3. Dan, we're going to steal the what's it called? Clock
drive.
drive.
Clock drive. We're stealing the clock drive. That or it's Back to the Future 4. One of the two.
Oh, like the flux capacitor. This is the version of a flux capacitor for astronomy.
Right. Yes, it's something that's it's the MacGuffin of the movie.
It's like stories like this are just huge reminders that humans are way more smarter than we think sometimes. Sure, we may not know everything, but I think sometimes a lot of people just underestimate like what we can do. That is absolutely incredible.
Well, and like if you look around in here, just the mechanical prowess that they had, the knowledge in the machines that they use to create this stuff. Like we don't do stuff like that anymore. This was built as if it was a railroad. And so they used a lot of railway technology for the big dome with those, like that thing moves around 360 degrees and it's essentially like a curved rail.
Yeah, right.
Because that's the technology that they knew. That's what they employed at the time. So it blows my mind what they were capable of doing and that it all still works.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
That's what is crazy.
Yeah, and yet, my computer crashes, regularly. It's like, come on, this intelligent, like alien level machine.
Text did not send.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
SMS not delivered.
Yeah.
Well, the sad part of the clock drive story is that they took it out at some point, I think in the 20s or 30s. I haven't found a written record of when yet because the technology sort of updated, so they made some changes. And I don't know where the actual governor lives. So this telescope, one of the very few upgrades that we've actually done on it is to put a computer system, little tiny one, in there to keep the telescope pointed. But everything else with this telescope right now, you point with your hand. You have to line it up and everything with your hand, and then run it.
Like you're using both your hands to move this thing around?
Quite literally. So that tube weighs something like 9 tons. The 2 glass lenses on
Right
the
over
end
us.
of it.
I know, right? Now I'm afraid. I don't,
Hey, it's held up for 130 years, so let's
good
not be
point.
afraid yet.
statistics would prove
Yeah.
that we're okay.
So the 2 glass lenses on the end, there's 2 that are about a meter across. And so together they weigh about 1 ton. And then you've got this huge metal tube that supports them. So their focal length together is 63 feet. And so that's how long the tube is. And that's where you put your eye on the end of it to have the focused image. So that will, it's so perfectly balanced. You can kind of see some weights that they've got up there. It's so perfectly balanced that we move it with our hands when we point
Incredible.
at objects. Yeah, it's fun.
One of my favorite parts is that I don't know if we're gonna ever be able to resolve it, but up on the end here, the eyepiece just looks like is it a 2-inch eyepiece?
Yeah, so
Just
the eyepiece
normal.
itself is 2. We use 2 or 3, and then the focuser is like a 4-inch. Like it's a huge focuser. But those, I think, were purchased in 2010, 2015, something like that. So it's sort of a modern eyepiece on the historic telescope. And that's something we do now, even telescopes. Once you build your big light bucket,
Yeah.
like you can keep improving the technology and the cameras and things that you put on the end of it.
Yeah.
I just love that it looks like something we would have in our backyards, and and it's attached to this huge tube. That the scale difference is just kind of stark. I love it.
I'm really curious, what's the focal length? Like how far can this thing see? And then what kind of stuff are we looking at with it?
Well, so the magnification that we can get is kind of up to 800, maybe even more, but that is almost too magnified. So we kind of lower it to somewhere between 200 and 400 or so, just so you can get a good field of view and you can get some of the bulk of the images inside of it. You can imagine if you're looking at Andromeda and you're that magnified, like you're looking at this diffuse nebula, little like whiff of is that a something there? That's not terribly exciting. So we adjust the eyepieces for taking the best image or getting the best view.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what we look at, I mean, whenever the moon's up, whenever a planet's up, like I never get tired of looking at that. That is amazing.
Yeah.
But we like to look at globular clusters. Those look really nice through here because you can resolve way down into the center instead of that big saturated blob in the center.
I
of
want to see
globular.
Hercules. Yeah. I bet you M13 is insane.
We try to look at some different planetary nebula or different things, but it can see distant galaxies. So I mean, we can look millions of light years away through it. Just depends on what you want to see.
Oh my gosh.
So I do want to get back to your glass plate question, though.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so you saw the eyepiece there, but imagine there used to be like a big black box, which would have been the plate camera. And so the glass plate would come to Yerkes from Kodak. It's usually who they ordered it from. And they would specify, like, this is the chemical that we want you to put on as an emulsion. Once that chemical emulsion is on the plate, it is light sensitive. So you can't expose it to light at all, or it just gets totally
It acts like
exposed.
film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is like, it went from glass to film to digital technology. So usually the average size is about 10 by 12 for a glass plate, and it's flat. It's maybe 1/4 of an inch, less than that, 1/8 of an inch thick. There's different thicknesses. They got thinner as time went on. And so they would send it in a box, and so you would have to put it, there's I don't know if you can see it on your view, but over there's like a wooden closet almost that is kind of an original piece of furniture, and it's light tight in there. So you would go in there and you would put your glass plate inside of a little mount, like a little metal frame, and then you would put it back in the box. And so now it's dark, all the lights are off. You have to walk over to where the eyepiece is now, and you would insert that into the box. And so now it has like a little shutter on it, so it's all closed and light tight. Then somehow you have to point your telescope exactly at what you're looking at. And how they did that, with these ancient finder charts. We've got these beautiful old finder charts on paper that were printed in Germany in like 1886, because you'd have to look at the bright star in your view, because if you're looking at something that you can actually see until you expose for an hour, then how are you going to point your telescope? So they'd have to trust that they could point that telescope And then as soon as you're ready, you open the shutter. Like, it's not a button that goes click, it's a thing that you actually pull out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is now you are exposing the light onto the light sensitive material, and you can expose for seconds, you can expose for hours. You just have to make sure that your telescope's pointed, and when you're finished, you close the shutter. And then you take it out, and you have to keep it in the dark. You can't expose it to light. And then we have currently we have 3, but there might have been as many as 6 dark rooms here. And so they developed the process. They sort of adjusted the development process over the years, and so they could probably do maybe a dozen at a time in the little urns that they've got down there. So they would develop them during the day, and then you get your developed glass plate. And once you've got that, that's called the first negative, because they come out negative. Then you use a similar process, but without the telescope, to create the positives, and then you can make copies of it kind of ad infinitum at that point.
That's crazy. I've got one of these smart telescopes, and like you literally just pull out your phone and hit, I want this galaxy. You hit go to, it finds it, it shoots it, and it spits it back on your phone for you to brag to all your friends.
And it probably shows you in color, too.
Exactly. That is incredible.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's something that I really appreciate about the almost romance about every step. I mean, any of those steps could go wrong and your data's wiped out. But at the time, that was like state of the art. That was amazing. So there's so much commitment, so much patience, and then you try to get as much science and knowledge and beauty out of those images as you possibly could. And today, we're a little spoiled. I'm not going to complain about that all the time, but I do really like the kind of romance of how much effort and hands-on skill you had to have in so many arenas to be able to create your image.
I don't know about you, Tan, but I'm going to get into glass plate Astro. It's the latest thing. I think it's coming back.
Yeah.
It's like vinyl. You know?
I'm in. It's so interesting because astrophotography now is still I consider it one of the most difficult forms of photography. The art of taking photos of things in space, right? The amount of complications that could happen at any moment under the stars while you're trying to fight with your camera is so much. I would love to see what that was like back then. And I would love to even have an interview with someone that was doing astrophotography many years ago. There's a good chance that there's like the same amount of frustration and hair pulling when you spend a whole night of doing something and then maybe the glass plate gets leaked on because of a little bit of candlelight or whatever, right? So that is so cool. And also, I'm so down.
Great. Yeah, this is the latest.
So I'll hire you when we start doing our digitization project, and you can come and come and hang
Please.
out, do a little sabbatical, and
We're in.
Let's go.
We got it right. Well, let's keep moving towards through the timeline here.
Okay.
So University of Chicago owned the facility
Yep.
to some extent, and then it transitioned to
Yep.
a new organization quite recently. Can you tell us about that transition?
Yep. So this place was completely owned by the University of Chicago from its inception. This was the astronomy department. So there were professors, they had classes, all the students were out here. In the 1970s, they started to realize that for the astronomy experiments they wanted to do, most of them were being done at other telescopes, or, at that time they started to consider launching things into space. And so they shifted the astronomy department back to the University of Chicago. There was still staff out here. They still had graduate students. They still utilized the telescopes. But it was shifting to more of a laboratory as opposed to the telescopes as the focus, and kind of shifting into an outreach facility. But it's an expensive place to keep up historic stuff. It takes a lot of effort. And so the university kind of tried to test the waters of selling it a couple times in the early 2000s, didn't work. And then in 2018, they said definitively, we are going to close the doors in October of this year and just stop all activity and sell it. And so they did, and nobody knew what was going to happen. It was quite a shock in professional astronomy for the local area. It was pretty sad. And so a group of folks around this area, around the lake, who were just passionate about the legacy of Yerkes Observatory and not wanting to see it turn into like a spa or private homes or a restaurant
Chick-fil-A.
or whatever it was.
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
Space fillet.
So they got together and created a nonprofit called the Yerkes Future Foundation and started to raise money. They initially had a goal of raising about $40 million for the restoration, and they were able to raise a significant portion of that, and they won the bid from the University of Chicago and took over ownership in 2020. So it immediately went into like construction. The roof was leaking buckets of water all over the place. Like there was the old knob and tube wiring that, is not safe.
Nope. What code? We don't have code.
This was way before codes. But they just sort of left it in the walls. They didn't remove it as they put in more modern systems over the decades. So they started to do all that work, and they worked on it for about a year and a half, and probably at the later stages of that initial investment was when you came to visit.
Right.
And so what we're trying to do now is have an institution that is kind of unlike anything I've really encountered before. It's not that we are a research institution that, oh, by the way, does a couple outreach things. And we're not an outreach or education facility that happens to have an astronomer on staff. We're really trying to, at the core, combine arts and science within our programs, within our mission, within everything that we're doing. And it has been so much fun.
Yeah.
It's a real challenge. I mean, it's an interesting concept to come into an organization that is trying to do something that hasn't really been done before, and like, so how do you do it?
Yeah.
And that's been my job as the main astronomer to come on, is do things still work? Can we operate this as a research institution? And how do we mesh that with musicians and artists and sculptors and education and just the inspiration that can come from space?
That's amazing. Can you kind of give us a little preview of what that looks like? Like, what are some of the things you're working on?
Yep. So we've had a group called Eighth Blackbird. So they're a Grammy-winning music group out of Chicago, and they do a creative lab every other year or so. And so they bring in 20 or so young musicians and composers, and we have hosted this 2-week sort of intensive creative lab where I work with them and kind of use the cosmos and this space and its legacy as inspiration for new contemporary composition that they then perform in spaces like this. And so utilizing the audio, the acoustics, you can't do a short choppy staccato sound in here. It just gets wiped away. So you are composing with that in mind for this space. And it like that pairing, that collaboration of what matters in the space and how do you translate that into music, and that kind of interplay back and forth has been so much fun. And so some of the performances that have come out of that and the continuing collaborations, right now we're getting ready to work with someone who wants to write an opera based on kind of women in astronomy who have come through here.
Whoa.
That's so cool.
Isn't that great? So those kinds of things are just really wacky and wild and fun. But then we get to bring our undergraduate interns here. So we've got 3 who are coming, and we have 2 high school students who are coming this summer. And parts of that musical group are going to come back. We're going to do a little intensive workshop to come up with new compositions within a week that are inspired by the research projects that the students are going to do for the summer. And like, there's big questions there. How do you pull out the big picture of a complicated science topic? Like, what are we doing? Why does it matter? And what's new about it? Like, what's the purpose? And to help students think through those questions is like one of my joys, because you get so down into the weeds and so into the details that you forget to be like, wait, why is this exciting? And to try to figure out how to translate all of those jargony words. I mean, I could talk about metallicity and I could talk about all the magnitudes that we're doing, but how do you make that matter?
Right.
It's a skill, and it's something that you've got to work at to be able to do. And then how does a musician pull from anything? Like, a musician might have to collaborate with anybody to like write a jingle for your new phone or whatever. Like, how do you get inspired to write something from anywhere, any collaborator that you're going to have? So that's what we get to bring these students, these younger people together to kind of figure out how they explore.
Wow. I love that some of these artists and these creators come in here, and what to any other musician might be an absolute problem is converted into a total opportunity.
Yeah.
And they leverage it and they lean into it to create something new and to turn it into something that has like a really deep and significant meaning. That's
Yeah.
really cool. It must be cool to like witness like the front row seat to that.
Oh, it's so fun. It's so fun. And, trying to figure out how different things in this building can be a story of inspiration. Or one of them wanted to go around and use, like, we've got all these big old metal tools, like a huge giant wrench that, who knows, these things we keep because eventually we're going to be like, you know what, we could use a wrench this big. It turns out we've got one, but they want to use it as like a percussion or something like that.
Oh yeah. I knew that scrap piece of wood in my garage was meant for something. That's awesome. Yeah. Keep everything.
Yeah,
It matters.
exactly. Exactly. To a certain degree.
Right.
One of the challenges is like they didn't throw away anything before I came. So when the Yerkes Future Foundation came in, they made choices about going through here and kind of deciding what was junk and what was valuable. And as far as I can tell, they made some very good choices, but I don't know that they may have gotten rid of.
Right. Yeah. Goodness.
I'm overwhelmed. There's so many things I want to say. I actually just want to thank you for being such an awesome communicator, because astronomy can be like, when I first got into astronomy, it was kind of intimidating. I was like, I don't. This isn't for me. These guys are way too smart. I don't know anything about the night sky. I am just a normal, regular dude who likes to play Call of Duty all day long. So why would I even attempt to, entertain something like this? And I think it's people like you that make it really exciting. Just being in this room has been extremely inspiring, but hearing your stories, there are some people who can just communicate and bridge gaps really well, and I think you do an awesome job of that. So hats off to you.
Thank you.
So cool.
So there have been renovations done to the facility since the organization acquired it. And
Yeah.
that was kind of the mess that I got to see when I was here. It was tarps, there was dust, it was the work in progress.
Yeah.
What sort of additions were added to the building to prepare it for the future?
So far, we haven't done much in the way of additions. We have done let's make sure this infrastructure holds for the next while. So replacing the leaky roofs. There's been a lot of brickwork. The inside of this dome has bricks that you can see, and so some of those were sort of disintegrating, shall we say. And so fixing that, there's a lot of parts where there's still water getting in. So we still have a lot of work to do. Later this summer, we've got some people coming in to help. When they did all of that brickwork, you could imagine a lot of dust sort of settled.
Yeah.
And you got to really scrape that and re-grease and clear it up, or else you're just going to wear things down. But we haven't been able to access the very top of the dome, which is like 93 feet up there. It's very funny if you look at the historic images, because when they were building this thing, it was like a bunch of guys tied on a rope, dangling.
Yeah.
And, now we have OSHA and we have, safety things. Humans matter.
Thank goodness.
But it makes it a lot more of a pain.
Yeah, right.
A little bit more complicated or complex to build the support structures to get us up to do some of that basic maintenance. So we have a lot of work left to go to seal everything up and kind of restore everything back to its function. The other interesting thing about this building is it was built as a university, so there were classrooms and there were offices. There's not a lot of big spaces that can support a large capacity of people. So for those performances that we were talking about, when they moved in, they actually ripped down a couple walls that connected offices or classrooms, so they had a little bit more capacity. And you would imagine this huge cavernous space would be awesome, but this floor is being suspended on 4 cables right now.
Wait, what?
Don't move, Tan.
Is that what I'm seeing with those pulleys right there?
Yeah, so this floor is suspended, and what happens is you are now sitting on the largest indoor elevator in the world. Somebody prove me wrong, but that's what I think
Whoa,
is
that's
true.
cool. Yeah.
And so there is a direct current motor in the basement that still works, and when it turns on, it pulls the weights that are attached to those pulleys down, and that lifts this floor up.
Oh, no way.
Whoa.
And that's how you get to the telescope.
Right, because I'd have to get pretty tall to reach that, have any shot.
How high up are we right now?
I think it's another probably 30 or 40 feet down to the basement. It's only crashed once. I mean, don't worry. That was right at the beginning.
That's really good statistics
Yeah.
for 129 or 130 years. That's really not bad, Sam. I think
They learned their
safe.
error right away before they actually opened the place. Before they dedicated it, the floor actually fell in the middle of the night, and
Whoa.
That's crazy.
the
Isn't that
photos
funny?
are terrifying.
Those things always happen in the middle of the night. Like, like, do you ever experience that? Like, things that, like, you hang a picture on the wall, it falls. It always falls at 2 a.m.
And scares you awake, and you're like, what was that?
Yeah, I
Are
cannot
you saying
imagine.
there's any like paranormal?
Maybe a little bit of woo-woo. I can't imagine how loud it was.
Yeah,
to-
they said they
Yeah.
could hear it in town.
What?
Whoa. I'm just glad the floors aren't like see-through somehow. That's crazy. I can't imagine being this high up.
Yeah, well, you have to do some maintenance up on top of the blue pier. There's a little thing up there, and the fence only comes up to like my knees. And so you can imagine these women in the early decades who were wearing the skirts and all of the layers are maneuvering around here using telescopes and climbing up. And I mean, that's actually an interesting point here is Harvard is the one who has sort of the computers, the women who were working there, but they were analyzing glass plates. Harvard didn't let any of the women use the telescopes. And so the women here could actually use the telescopes in the full layered dresses.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, wow. Well, we're not bringing that back, are we? We're gonna
I'm not intending on doing that. No,
Yeah.
no thanks.
We need to keep things efficient, right?
It's back to the safety.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Thanks, OSHA. Oh my goodness. So yeah, now we're in 2025, and things are moving in a new direction for the future,
Yeah.
right? Like, what sort of goals did you guys set as a team for as an organization? Like, what does the next 100 years look like for this place,
Yeah.
and how do you even take the first step? You know?
There are a couple different goals that we have. So from the research perspective, we have the opportunity to train students to use big telescopes when we are in an era of astronomy right now where you don't actually get a lot of hands-on experience to go use big telescopes. They've all been automated, or they collect the data and you can go onto a server somewhere and just pull the data down and analyze it. So we have two reflecting telescopes in the little domes that you saw in the video at the beginning
Right,
of this.
yep.
There's a 1 meter telescope and a 0.6 meter telescope. And so those are up and functioning. So training the next generation of students to just kind of learn how to break things and fix them again.
Yep.
That's how astronomy really works.
Totally.
To digitize those glass plates. And so to use those not only for scientific projects, to have them as a database for the future, but also to inspire different kinds of art from them. So I'm really curious what we're going to be able to do when we get our creative juices flowing and bring some people in here
Yeah.
as we collect the data digitally and then have some of those left over. And then the science communication side, so we're doing lots of outreach programs to get students in here. We just had our 2000th school student come through since we started
wow.
a year and a half ago. So that's really fun getting them. I still get emails from folks who said they came here when they were a kid,
That's
40,
awesome.
50 years ago, and they still have that memory. So love that. Our grounds were also designed by Olmsted, who's like the original landscape designer. And so we have 50 acres of grounds that were designed by the Olmsted firm. And so we're currently in Arboretum. And so we're restoring the landscape. We've got a pollinator garden. We've got little bee apiaries.
good luck.
Somebody just landed on you to say hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck.
Talking
Yeah,
about
Got a
the
little
outside.
ladybug.
ladybug on me.
They like the building too.
Yep.
So we're restoring the grounds, and then we're tying in that landscape into our programming. We're also building a play space outside. So
What?
it's like a supernova-inspired play space.
Okay, dude, we're coming back.
What?
I want to play.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's really cool. So kind of integrating the idea of observing not only through the telescope, but the world around you. Like you need bees for what? You need the plants, the pollinators. You need just the ability to walk through nature and to see the stars and keep cognizant of the light pollution that we're putting up. That is totally a human-made thing that is wiping out the next kid's ability to walk to their friend's house and see the stars in the sky. So the educating, or just the getting that kind of in people's minds, like we have the purpose, we have the ability to stop some of those things just by the choices we make every day.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know if other observatories are doing what you guys do. Where are you pulling your inspiration for all these really awesome ideas?
That's an interesting question. So, I mean, in my career, I followed pretty typical academic trajectory. I got my PhD. I went and did a research postdoc in England. I went and did some research in Australia. My first title was Super Science Fellow, which was awesome.
Whoa.
By the way,
Title?
my nephew gave me a little cape that I wore for talks every now and then.
Brilliant.
And then while I was in Australia, I had the opportunity to do a lot of like media training and science communication training, and it sort of shifted my career into that side. How do you explain to people why these things are interesting, or like, why does it matter? I think that why it matters really became important. And so I started to do all kinds of creative projects through there in radio with different kinds of sounds, collaborating with different types of media and different kinds of groups. And so then I moved back to the US after about 10 years to work with the Yerkes Observatory, which is just about finished with construction. It's very exciting. But I started on their program as the head of the education and public outreach program. So it's sort of like shifting into the strategic thinking of how do we give something to the world about this particular project or observatory that doesn't exist, like NASA's not already doing.
Right, sure.
You know? And it was just fun to kind of be creative and see how the digital realm and technology and the internet can give us lots of new ideas to express why the universe is interesting. So for me, I think it just comes from a lot of different places. I moved from that position to a director role for Rubin and then shifted here. So now, like, I can do research, I can use telescopes, I can talk about science, I can do education, I can build organizations, I can build teams, I can do project management. Like, I can do all of these things, and to have the opportunity to come to this sort of, we call it a 125-year-old startup.
Yeah, right.
Nice.
That's a unique phrase.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And see what we can do with it. Like, and the fun thing is, because we're a nonprofit, because we're not inside of an academic institution, we have the ability to change really quickly. We can be resilient. We can try something out, and if it just crashes, we're like, okay, we're not doing that again. Or we can take the best parts of things and really lean into them and explore them and like, let's go farther and see what's working. So like, I'm getting all my collaborators and all my colleagues, like, let's come up with some really fun ideas and see what we can do.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
I love that.
Do want to take a quick second here and thank everybody who is hanging out with us tonight in the live chat. You guys, I see 85 people hanging out with us. Fun fact, that is a record
Yo,
for the show.
Yeah.
you guys are awesome.
Hats off to all of you guys
Chats.
from wherever you are. Sound off in the chat. Let us know, where are you viewing from? Are there countries outside of the U.S. who are tuning in tonight? We would love to hear from everybody. Maybe say hello in your respective language. We would love to hear from you. We also want to do a little bit of an update on our donation push to support the historic Yerkes Observatory that we're in right now. This giant, amazing place. We do have a number update. So, Tan, you want to take it?
Yeah, our goal, $500, and we are at, is that 433?
Yeah.
Wow.
433.
$433, guys. Thank you guys so much. Every single person that has contributed, there's no amount that is too little. Thank you.
Yeah, and some of the things we've been listening to just across the period of the episode that's been running right now, you can experience the scale of people who've come through here. And there's youth, there's students who come through here, and the impressionability that they have, like a young person has. You can change the trajectory of a life with just a simple experience, like walking through a building or seeing a scope just like this for even just 10 minutes. Keeping this place alive is going to give more and more children, no matter who they are, the opportunity to get interested in astronomy and science. So that's really ultimately the push. I like thinking of it through that lens of the youth, building into that next generation. So thank you to everybody who has chosen to donate tonight. We still have a little bit of time. We're going to be on the show here, so you still have a chance to do it. Just a reminder that the link is in the description for you. Nice and easy. Should be a pretty quick process. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Oh my goodness. So again, the future of the facility, there's 100+ years, like it's like this other side of this coin. We've experienced 100 years, we got another 100 years, and hopefully then some.
Yeah.
What's it like to build a place, pour into a place, everything that you've thought of, conjured as an idea, and to know that maybe you won't experience the outcome of these decisions?
That's the best. I mean, honestly, different parts in my career, there have been things that I have created, and then they take a life of their own. And the people who come up who learn how to do them or have their own ideas, or, you can't keep something stagnant, especially in a time when technology and culture is changing so rapidly right now. You can't expect it to be rigid. You have to be flexible. And to see something take on a life of its own is like the best thing as a mentor, as a teacher, as an educator, as a scientist. Like, I want it to flourish. I'm here to do the best I can and to think about the possibilities, my vision. But my vision right now is probably not going to be the best one in 20 years from now. So that is absolutely the best.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and how different that looks from the people who started it.
Yeah.
And if you guys had the chance to meet, like, you could compare notes, and be like, is this what you guys wanted to do? Because look, things have changed,
It's true, but like, I honor that.
Mm-hmm.
I honor that legacy because I'm, walking through the same places. I'm opening up the same cabinets. Like, one of the best parts about here is, even though it has been around for that long and there was a whole change of ownership and cleaning out, every single week I will open something up or empty out a closet and just find some tiny little treasure and either it's very clear where it's from, or you're like, this is definitely old. Is it like 50 years old? Is it like 100 years old? Like,
Yeah.
what is this thing? And so you put on your little sleuth hat and try to figure out what it is. And it's like that constant reminder of, like, the things that I'm doing now, honor that and could be around for generations to come. And I hope people have as much fun with it and feel that connection, that like real physical, deep connection,
Right.
which is like so important to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
When they come here, they experience any of the programs we run, or they walk on the grounds, or, eventually we'll probably get into the online world a little more, but there's just such a kind of existential wonder when you walk into this place and you just think of what it has done and what it could do.
Right. You probably experience a wide gamut of people who come through the doors as visitors, people who are esteemed and have this renown about them. Maybe in the world, they're global players in the world of astronomy, all the way down to maybe somebody who's just exploring astronomy for the very first time. What goes through your mind? What sorts of feelings do you have when it's somebody who knows nothing and you get the chance to be the first input about astronomy in their life? What do you feel?
It's really cool. I think we all have that inherent curiosity, and it doesn't necessarily have to be about astronomy. It could be about whatever it is that your curiosity is. And I think for me, the goal is to use that as a hook, because it's such a pretty hook. Even the architecture of this building and the humor that's in the architectural design, like, you just feel something and you come in, and if I can get that person inspired to, or confident to kind of ask whatever the question is that they're feeling, or go in that direction of the thing. Like, don't be afraid of what your question is. It's not going to be the same question that I have, or that, that you have, or that this kid over there has. You have something that's unique to you, and a unique perspective. And if you can come out of here, like, leaning into that a little bit, that's my goal. Like, that's really what I love.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love it.
Well said.
Are there any particular stories that come to mind of somebody who maybe was like that, or maybe a little bit different, where you're like, I'll never forget that person who walked through those doors?
It's sort of the other way. The things that come to mind immediately are when I was starstruck by people.
Nice.
So I'll give you one story. There's a lot of them. I mean, I feel very proud because the astronomy community was pretty gutted when this place was going to close, and nobody knew what was going to happen. Because even in my professional career, I'd heard of Yerkes as some historic place, but I didn't know really what came out of here or the significance of it, because it hadn't really been contributing to the modern research that I was conducting. So I didn't even know it's like in the Midwest. I didn't know, it's in Wisconsin. Okay. It's only a couple hours from Chicago. So the fact that people now are seeing what we're doing and they're excited by it, we're kind of contributing to the greater good or the greater growing knowledge of the universe, but not in like the kind of traditional mold of academia as it has been for millennia.
Right.
But people seem really excited about it, and that makes me really proud. Like you can do something, you can still contribute in a different way and not be afraid of it. Like not, I mean, could fail at any point. I don't know. If we stop raising money, then that would be a sign that we're not successful. But I feel like we're in the right direction. I feel pride when I talk to my colleagues and invite astronomers in. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the story is I was on the job for maybe a month at this point, I think. And we have, every now and then people will rent the space for some event. Mm-hmm. And there was somebody who rented the space for their fancy birthday party. This was sort of a stop on the way. And the guest that they were bringing was Hillary Clinton.
Whoa.
And I was like, what?
Yeah.
So I am on like month 2 of trying to learn all of the history of everything. And my job was to introduce her and her team to the telescope.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
My mind was blown. And I had a very short amount of time. I had like 4 minutes. They were like, we're a little bit behind schedule, so hurry up. So they come. We can only, there's a weight limit on the floor, so you can only have so many people on the floor because I like to lift it up. Mm. That's a wow moment. And so then I got my 4 minutes of talking to her and telling her about things, and then she had a lot of questions in response. And so I was like really proud that she wasn't like, okay, thanks, bye.
Right.
But she had like all of these questions to ask, and she had that sort of inspiration moment and, enjoyed the legacy of it. So that was, I'm in the middle of a small town in Wisconsin, and I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, right.
So yeah, we've had Nobel Prize winners come through here. We had a U.S. Poet Laureate come through. Mm. So it's just been really fun, the kinds of collaborations and inspiration that this place lends itself to.
Does it feel any different whenever you have, let's say, a 7-year-old kid who's super fascinated by everything versus someone like Hillary Clinton or maybe some other, like higher scale person? Does it feel any different? Does it feel more rewarding or?
I like the freedom that kids feel when they come in here because they have so many questions and they want to share their story. They want to relate to you. They want to relate to the place. They want to run around. They aren't afraid to gush and be like, wow, that's so cool. And one of the fun things when we raise the floor, it looks like the pier stays. And so the floor goes up, and it's this optical illusion where it looks like the telescope is going down.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it is so fun when kids are in here. And that happens. So, I really do love the innocence, the pure curiosity, the pure joy that kids bring. And I see in adults that they get a little bit less inhibited, and they do show some of that, whoa, you hear that so many times when people walk in. And I do like that. I'm not sure if I have a favorite, but I love that in this building, it just lets people go of whatever it is that they're carrying for a little bit of time. And that's pure joy for me.
That's brilliant. Oh my gosh.
I love that.
If you could think of one thing that you'd want someone who knows nothing about Yerkes to know, maybe say in just a few sentences, like 3 sentences, what would you say to somebody? What do you want to leave them with?
There is potential to create a new future by respecting what has been and envisioning what could be. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't have anything to do with Yerkes itself. Honestly, I didn't use Yerkes at all in there, but I think that is the truth. And whatever the medium is that you have skills in or are fascinated by, don't be afraid to just try it and throw your whole heart into it.
Wow. I love that.
What do you think maybe the next 5 years looks like? Just a more intimate future, not such a vast outlook at 100 years. 5 years, what do you think might be around the corner?
Well, we just got the 2 reflecting telescopes sort of, greased and oiled and fixed up and working. And so I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to do with those, what kind of students we're going to come in, what kind of research we're going to be able to do. We'll have it operating remotely, and so you can use it from anywhere and take the maximum amount of clear skies that we get, which, is limited here
Right.
in Wisconsin, shall I say candidly.
Yep.
So I'm really excited to see kind of what direction that research program goes in. We also have some big ideas to support the programming ideas we have. So with the play space that's coming on, that's going to be being constructed over the next year. And then we're also going to be building kind of a visitor and education center to really have the capacity for the 150, 200 person programs and education ideas that we have, that as beautiful as this building is, like we're capacity limited in what we can do right now. And so kind of raising funds to be able to build that, and then the process of designing and imagining all of the kind of science and arts crossover pollination projects that we could do in there to affect, to impact young people, old people, like people all over the world, and see what comes out of there. Those are the kinds of things that I'm super excited about.
That's cool. This is kind of a specific idea, but would you guys ever entertain having some kind of like planetarium? I've only been to one, and it was probably the coolest thing in the entire world. And I was just thinking, like, how cool would that be if you guys had one?
Yeah, I mean, so the ideas are flowing. Whether or not any are going to happen, you could even imagine turning this place into a planetarium, having 3D projected digital images. I like the idea of even, have you ever seen the ones where they kind of project on the side of a building, and then you can turn it into a bubble and pop it, and it just kind of like sinks. Like those kinds of things projected onto this building, or using one to show you every age, every era of technology, or all that. I mean, those kinds of things are super fascinating. And a planetarium is definitely part of that like digital storytelling that we could do here.
Yeah, 50 acres. You gotta
I know,
take
we got a
advantage
lot
of
of
it.
room.
Just don't tell the Almost Dead firm 130 years ago that you're going to take up that space. They might not be happy, right?
Well, we're also hoping we have the original telescope that Hale had in his house in Chicago when he was a teenager growing up. So it's a 12-inch refractor, and we've got all the pieces spread around. And so one of the things we'd like to do is restore that and put it in its own sort of space outside. And it would ultimately be the oldest piece of equipment that we have. And so it's a smaller scale than this, but still gorgeous views and fun technology.
Yeah, no kidding. My gosh, that's crazy. Dude, old stuff. We need to get some old scopes on our loadout. I think.
Yeah.
None of this new stuff.
I feel like this entire conversation has just really maybe just really appreciate the things we have now. It's a very cliche thing to say, but the amount of technology that we have now and the kind of stuff that we're doing so long ago, it really is incredible.
Right. I keep thinking about how many people of influence have come through here, from the women who were operating the facility all the way to Sagan and Chandrasekhar. If you could have all of them in here right now, how would you address them? Like every last person of influence.
I would be asking them stories of the shenanigans they got into in this place, because everybody's got stories and they're fun.
Yeah.
And then there's also just the joy of problem solving and troubleshooting, and like kind of using this space as inspiration for the different kinds of ideas that you have and the experiments that you run, and the different contemporaries who would come in here at the same time. Like Einstein came here in 1921, and he came on his very first visit to the US. And he said he wanted to visit two things. He wanted to go to Niagara Falls, and he wanted to go to Yerkes Observatory. And so he came, and like for it to have inspired that many people over its history, like it would be cool just to hear some of their stories, but more the shenanigan side. Science is okay too.
That Sagan guy was a real goofball, right?
Well, there was a rumor going around that he crashed the telescope into the floor, but he didn't. We actually found the culprit who did that. There's a big gouge of the wood.
Oh, man. Goodness gracious. I'm thinking a little bit about, too, the global perspective that people have. I know there's folks in our stream right now who might have the opportunity to come here, just like Einstein.
Yeah.
What would you say to them to encourage them to take that extra step and hop across the pond?
It is I mean, it's 100% worth it. I think the programs that we're doing, you can use the telescope. We open it up on Fridays and Saturday nights for the public. We have bigger open houses where we get telescopes out in the lawn and we do activities, and we have special guests who do speaking and have family activities and stuff. And then we've got our speaker series where you can come and you can meet U.S. poet laureates and Nobel Prize winners and gardeners. And, I'm giving a talk later this year, so everybody come.
Oh, nice.
Everybody,
Next month.
You hear that? Show up.
And then just the region around, you can walk around. We've got about 5 miles of trails around the Olmsted grounds. There's this gorgeous lake just down the hill, and Lake Geneva is the neighboring town. So there's all kinds of stuff to do. It's like a little hint of the non-big city closer to the park. Like the national park system in the U.S. is pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
As cool as the cities are, like I like to travel and visit that natural side of things. And so I think this gets you into that kind of legacy, historical beauty, natural wonder, also tapping into like the science side of it and the art side of it too. So it's worth it. We've had people who have driven like 7 miles to come to do one of the public programs, in particular the observing, and then just like go off again and drive home. So it's definitely worth it, and it's a place that sits with you for a long time.
Goodness. Let's come back, Dan. Let's come
I'm
back
in.
right now.
Yeah.
Slumber party in the observatory.
I think that would be kind of cool. Just maybe sleep like right under this thing.
Yeah. Let's go in the chat, you guys. What do you think of this place? How cool is it? What sort of impact has it had on you guys, even just like tuning into this stream right now? Or if you're listening later in the audio podcasts on your favorite audio podcast platform, what are you guys thinking? Be sure to come back to this video, leave a comment on it, and let us know what sort of questions you have or feelings that have come up for you guys. It's a pretty cool place, and it would be well worth it to make the trip to come check it out.
Yeah, maybe we can do like a super quick AMA.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know? Yeah, you guys want to
Ask
throw
me
some
anything?
questions in the chat? We'd love to feature some of these.
Yeah, we're in the final minutes here of our show, so do your best to leave your question in the chat. Keep it concise, and we'll try to answer as many as we can in the time that we have left. So let's see. So many friends. Gosh, I saw a peak of we had 91 people in here at one point. 91.
Oh, wow. I've been avoiding looking at the numbers.
Yeah, you're like, I can't do it. Just no, it's amazing. Seriously, 91 people. We should also give an update on our donation here. So again, our goal for tonight was to raise $500 for Yerkes to help keep science advancing, and the most recent $470. You guys were $30 away from hitting that goal. That's so close, so close.
We're right there. Yeah, thank you guys so much. This has been incredible. It's been kind of like overwhelming. I mean, Nick and we've never done anything like this. No. And well, without getting too much into it, we're still a newer podcast. We started this last year. And Nick and I, for those of you guys that don't know, we met through TikTok because of astronomy. I'll just give you a super short version, but there was a point in my life where I never really looked up. I never really cared about anything that was up there. It was always just down at my feet or just what's in front of me. And 2020, it was definitely a huge shift in my life. And Nick and I, we met in a live stream, and we ended up shooting a lunar,
it was an annular eclipse.
annular eclipse.
Yep.
Yeah, back in 2023,
Yep.
October. Anyways, fast forward, astronomy has led us to share stories such as the one that you're listening to now. There are so many inspiring people out there that just have their own version of how the night sky has impacted their lives. And really, it's our goal just to be able to share these stories. That is it. That is the only goal. If we can convince one of you guys just to maybe look up every once in a while, I think that's a huge victory for us. So for us to be sitting here, just standing on top of historical giants is honestly a huge dream come true. So this is cool. Well, I'm just trying to say thank you guys so much for being a part of this. Seriously, this is so fun. Like, we have to come back.
Right. No, for sure.
Let's shoot a shot. Can we come back?
I think so. I'm going to put you to work, though, if you do, digitizing those glass plates.
Yeah, I'm in.
We're in.
I'm
Sold.
in. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and to kind of just bounce off of what Tan was saying, that's sort of the whole idea of this show. So if you guys are experiencing this podcast for the very first time, the Galactic Window, like what the heck even is that? It's exactly what Tan described. It's this unique perspective that every single one of us has. We all can see the same night sky, but we each perceive it differently. There's a different lens. Maybe it's as an astronomer, maybe it's as an artist, maybe you're a parent, or you're a child. You don't know, it doesn't matter. But that energy, that connection with night sky is special in every single scenario. And that's what we like to do, is we like to feature those stories and bring them here on the show for you guys. So tonight has certainly been no exception. We have an amazing story right here next to us. So thank you so much for sharing every bit with us. And
My pleasure. It's been a joy to chat with y'all.
we hope you had a great time.
I did.
Let's see if there's any questions. Maybe we can feature a couple or a few here.
Yep.
Guys, we know there's a ton of people in here, so we're not going to be able to read everyone's questions, but we're going to pick a few here.
All right, let's see. Here's a good question. What African American astronomers have used this telescope? Have there been any influential people that have come through?
There probably have. Actually, there was an astronomer who was African American who was working with us for about a year and then went on to bluer skies, as it were, in Arizona. I have to think about names that people would know who have come through here.
Pretty wide network of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, I think I saw in there, how many components there are for the telescope. I think that's what I read, it flashed past there. And I'll tell you, I don't know
Yeah, we're looking for it.
the exact numbers, but we did find like the original blueprints for the design of the building and also the design of the telescope on like the actual blue paper. And you could imagine, you kind of unroll it and it's just gigantic. So when we kind of did our first investigations into some of the systems in the telescope, we went back to the original blueprints to see what sort of hidden inside of some of the components. And of course, at some point, maybe 1930, maybe 1945, they would have opened it up and done a little bit of work and not updated the blueprints at all, and then put it all back together. And that would have happened multiple times over the series of decades that this place has been open. So it's fun to have the original blueprints. It's not so fun to not have any documentation.
Right.
I just inherited everything as it was. So
Right. There was no homeowner's binder left behind.
There you go.
No warranty, that's for sure.
What you got?
So Jersey Starman says, so inspired by tonight's episode, bringing the arts and more broad science to Yerkes is so, it's hard for me to read this, fascinating. Wonder how I could do the opposite locally, bringing astronomy to my local arts. Yeah, what are some things that we can do on a smaller scale? Like, what can the average person do?
Yeah, there's a couple things that come to mind. Reaching out to places and seeing if you can set up a telescope outside of events. So as people are coming and going, that's one way to sort of connect space. Another one is bringing in ideas of light pollution or how much we're kind of illuminating the night sky and not allowing space for that inspiration from the stars. Like that's a really big thing I've been finding here locally, that people want to know what they can do. They want to know how they can maybe shield their lights or what choices they can make with light bulbs outside, things like that. So, I mean, that's another way to inspire creativity or bring these things up either in your local council or at events that people are having, just kind of offering to do something along those lines.
I love that. That's good.
This question came up here. Any fun nicknames that a telescope has been given? I guess I wouldn't have even thought of that. Like, do you guys just refer it to as the big scope, or do you have names for the?
I mean, mostly we call it the Great Refractor, but there are several observatories that have their own Great Refractor. There's some that aren't necessarily polite or G-rated, so
Yeah, we'll
Oh,
refrain.
man.
Yeah,
mention any of
Yeah.
those. I mean, yeah, we just call it like the big scope,
yeah.
the great refractor.
Well, that's the homework we're gonna leave for you guys.
Okay.
By the next time we come on the show here with you guys, you need to have some names listed.
I want some suggestions.
Oh,
The
even
audience
better.
can. I'm not a
Yeah.
very good nickname giver.
Give us
My
some
daughter
names,
will tell you
guys.
that, so I want to hear what y'all think.
So I have a question for you. This is a little outside of astronomy, but word on the street is you like succulents. Is this
This is typical of me breaking on the show. I think we just hit that moment.
tell me more about this.
So I've lived in a lot of different places in the world, and some are easier to grow plants than others. And succulents have just been one that has been consistent. It's come with me. I lived in Arizona, so I was able to grow some things there, although I did kill some cacti.
What?
Oh,
Well, I moved there from Australia. I'd never lived in the Southwest or a desert, so I didn't know. I was just like, it's a cactus. They can live here. You don't need to water them.
yeah.
Well, it turns out you do.
Do you have a favorite kind of succulent?
Well, I think you consider a jade plant a succulent. And so
Okay.
I have a jade plant cutting that was my great grandfather's plant. And so when my great grandfather died, my mom took some of his plants and gave a cutting to my sister and one to myself. And we all had the experience that jade plants only flower after they've lived for like 25 years. I didn't know that. I didn't even know that they flowered. And so I was visiting my sister for Christmas one year, and her jade plant just exploded in all these tiny little white flowers. And I
Wow.
was mesmerized. And then on the same trip, I went to visit my mom, and my mom's plant also exploded in these little flowers. So I have a cutting from that plant. I'm waiting for my 25-year flowering.
Oh, cool.
How exciting. Yeah. I'm a new plant dad. I got into it, I'd say last year, and I've accumulated way too many plants and managed to keep most of them alive. But I think it's beautiful that it's one of those things where it literally will just stay with you for generations. It stays, and I think that's what makes it really special. It's just having the ability to keep something, keep a little bit of history, and just have it grow with you.
Yeah, it's something as I've traveled around the world, when I move to a place, I just kind of give away all my plants. And so as I come across the paths of friends, sometimes I forget who I gave what plant to. And so they'll send me photos every now and then, or they'll say, oh, I've still got that pothos that you gave me 20 years ago.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
it's kind of leaving that legacy around. And I just find it really kind of meditative to pay attention to the plants and see if you get a new plant, like how it grows new leaves, how it regenerates, how you water it. Like, I just find it really fascinating.
I don't know why this just came to me, but I was thinking about constellations. You probably, of course, get to spend a lot of time hearing about them. If you could create a constellation, what would it be?
Well, the one that I saw when I was a kid walking across, it was like a bird. It was a big bird. It had its wings and its head and its kind of body. And so it has stuck with me. It's inspired songs. I think the fascinating thing for me is all different cultures have their own constellations, their own patterns that they find in the sky. And the indigenous cultures in Australia, as long as 20,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago, they could see so many stars, because in the southern hemisphere, you look through the center of the Milky Way, so it is just incredible. It's way better sky than the northern hemisphere. Some of your listeners might be able to attest to that. And so there were so many stars that after a while, as you start to get dark adapted, it takes 15 minutes or so to get dark adapted, to really get sensitive, you can't even see the brightest constellations anymore. I lose the patterns of them because there are so many stars that your eyes can see. And that was true, you can imagine, before there were city lights, that's how you lived. So the indigenous populations in Australia did not use the patterns of the stars, they used the dark nebula, the regions where there
Wow.
weren't stars, because they could see them. And so they would follow those patterns where they were at different parts of the sky to know when to plant crops, when to move, when to hunt certain things, when to fish certain things. And that's what guided them, and that's where a lot of their stories come from.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Who knew? It's definitely not something we get to experience anymore, is that saturation of stars and that natural light.
Yeah.
What do you think is one of the best ways to combat light pollution?
Well, first I want to ask your listeners, if y'all have seen the Milky Way in the night sky, let us know, because not a lot of people have. I didn't even get to see it until I was like 20 and I was camping out in California or something. To combat night sky, so the lights that you have on the outside of where you live, you can put shields on them so that the light that you have, so let's say this microphone is a light, the shield should cover it so you can't see the light bulb when you're standing like at the street looking at it. That way all the light goes down to the places that you're trying to illuminate as opposed to just shooting up.
Yeah.
That contributes to this glow, this sky glow, and it makes it harder and harder to see the stars. So shielding your lights, and then you can use like color temperature now with LEDs. Instead of just going for wattage, you can look at the color temperature and you can go with things that are warmer than about 3000 Kelvin. And so you get a little more yellow and red, and that is better for your eyes. So your eyes lose their dark adaptedness immediately when you're in a white light or a blue light.
Right.
Those are appropriate for inside, but outside, you want it a little more warm. You want it more calming. And then you can also use timers to turn your lights off so they're not there all the time, or motion sensors. So I get a lot, people will say, well, but it's about safety. And I'm like, if you got a big honking light and you're shining up the whole neighborhood, people are going to be like, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there is a little bit of safety, but you don't have to have it on all night. You can use timers, you can use motion detectors and things like that to turn your lights on so they're not just on wasting energy and attracting all of those little bugs that throws off their entire circadian rhythm when they're attracted to those lights, and it bugs you. Like, that's why I first started turning my lights off, is just because when you walked out and you had all these bugs floating around everywhere, it drove me crazy. But it turns out it's really bad for them too.
Wow. Yeah. No good. We don't like it either.
There you have it, guys. If you don't like bugs, turn off all the lights.
If you're bugged by the bugs.
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of at the end of our show here, so we want to thank everyone who submitted questions in the chat. Thank you so much for that. We do want to give you another update on our donation, the final update here. So you guys, let's see, what is it? It's so small. Yep. Tan, do you want to do the honors? I think you should do the honors.
Yeah.
Let's share it.
All right. Our goal was $500 tonight, guys. Oh my God. $558 from 11 donors. Guys, thank you so much.
Wow.
Yay.
That's
We did it.
freaking awesome. Yeah, we did it.
Yes.
We did it.
That's
you guys did it.
Yeah, you guys did it. Thank you so much. It's a collective effort on your guys' part. We appreciate you, and I know that it's going to make some sense of an impact for you guys. So we hope
Yes.
it goes a long way for
Well,
you.
congratulations to you, and thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Dude, that's awesome.
Dude.
I'm like freaking out. We had no clue. We
Yeah.
had no clue what to expect tonight.
Yeah. Tonight's been a little bit different in the sense that we aren't as engaging. We're just kind of having a conversation, and you guys are just happening to be a part of it and watching us. So we really appreciate your guys' patience and your extreme generosity. That is incredible.
Yep.
Hold on. We also have something for...
Dude, good catch.
Yeah.
Good catch. Okay.
Hold on. We're almost done, guys. But
Yeah, you guys
one more thing.
hang tight. Kiffer in our tech booth back here, we need your help.
Yes.
Take it out. We have a little something we'd like to present to Yerkes Observatory as a thank you for hosting us and partnering with us on this project. Tanya, grab it.
Yeah.
This is a print of the Northern Lights that we have.
Wow.
That we go a little vertical. There we go. The trees are sideways.
Yep.
Here, let's cut to that shot. So,
Yeah.
this photo was taken last year in Manitoba, Canada.
Wow.
We went up there and got to see some Bortle 1 skies and got a really good show. So we'd like to
Yes.
present this. Let me go back to the wide shot here so we can see. This is for the observatory.
This
So
is absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Well, we will hang it with pride.
awesome, fantastic.
Oh, man. That's so
Oh,
cool.
I love that.
Seriously, I don't even know if I have enough words to express how much gratitude I have for this.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing two normies who's chasing their dreams of just trying to share with the world how important astronomy is, because it's kind of going back to that story of how intimidating it was for me to get started. I know for a lot of people, a lot of times I'll hear like I'll see the same thing in myself. I'll see people shy away from all these star parties or open houses. I'm like, no, come back. You don't have to wear a lab coat. Like this isn't some crazy like scientist intimidating thing. It's just being curious. Something that I think every human inherently has, just the curiosity of what's up there. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I have something to remember our day by. Thank you. Love it.
Cool. Well,
I just want real quick. I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who sent us supers for our personal stuff too. There's so many of them. We see all of you guys. Thank you if you've contributed, whether you were watching the stream, liking, sharing, or monetarily. Thank you so much.
Yep, I definitely lost track at some point in there.
Yes, yeah.
I don't even know how much has come in.
This is a record for us too. So
yeah. So, Dr. Bauer, seriously, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the best of luck on the next several steps here at Yerkes Observatory. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks. And if anybody visits who found out about us through this show, they should definitely let us know. We'll do something special for those folks.
Oh, cool.
Very cool. All right. Well, you guys, this is it. This is episode 50. We can't believe we made it here, and we know that there's going to be our own future to be going forward in the podcast world. So thank you for your support this far. It's been great, and we hope you guys learned something tonight.
Dude, good job, man.
Dude, we did it.
50?
Yeah.
Whoa.
50.
Here's to the next, 50, or hopefully a lot more.
Yeah, right. Shoot for the stars, right?
Yeah.
So any final thoughts, Sam, before we wrap up the show? We didn't have any ahas. There we go.
Thank you, everyone.
We had to get at least one in there.
Big W's to everyone, all the viewers.
Yep. So for now, you guys, just so you know, next week we'll be back for another regular episode 51, 9 p.m. Central on YouTube, also on Twitch. And if you're listening, you'll find the audio-only versions of the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, your favorite places. You can find us there as well. So don't feel like if you can't make the lives, you're missing anything. You can always find it when you're comfortable. So cool. Well, we have a little video we'd like to end the show on. So this is a little unconventional, but we had to do something special for episode 50. So wishing you guys all the best. And let me cue it up. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much. As we wrap up our 50th episode of the Galactic Window Space Podcast, we want to take a moment to say thank you. First, to Yerkes Observatory for graciously hosting us for this milestone episode. It's been an honor to collaborate with your team on this project. You helped turn a dream into a reality.
To our viewers and listeners, whether you've joined tonight for the first time or you've been with us since episode 1, thank you so much for giving us your time and support. You inspire us to keep moving forward. Also, we'd like to make an honorable mention to those who contributed to the Yerkes Donation Fund this evening. Your contributions will help shape the future of astronomical discovery for generations to come.
And to all of our past guests, thank you for sharing your own views through the Galactic Window. Your stories and experiences have helped our audience view the night sky differently. We're deeply grateful for each of you.
Here's to the next 50 episodes and continuing to build community through curiosity together.